What is up, guys? I'm back, this time with a Xilonen video. I recently pulled her C6 and she is better than I expected, so I'm gonna glaze her in this video by going over her kit and doing a few showcases with different teams. Okay, if you want a quick summary of what she does, she is a support that can heal, give resistance shred, and also an additional Nightsoul Burst. She can also provide elemental damage bonus. That's a lot of buffs, but most of this is from her skill. So let's take a look at her skill description. Okay, that's a lot of yapping, but don't worry, I will summarize this for you. So Xilonen has 3 source samples, as you can see here. And if you want her to be a support, 2 of them need to change by having at least 2 teammates that are either Pyro, Hydro, Cryo, or Electro. So in this example, I have Farina, Bennett, and Hutao. This means at least 2 of her source samples have changed. And because of her passive talent, doing 2 normal attacks will now give her the max Nightsoul points required to proc her elemental resistance shred, which helps Farina and Hutao do more damage. This elemental resistance shred also works like Zhongli shield. You just have to be near the enemy to get it, so it's pretty good. In this example, I have Neuvillette, Farina, and Kazuha. Again, 2 of my source samples changed because I have 2 Hydro elements on my team, but not the 3rd one because the Anemo element does not work. So now I can do 2 normals to get my Hydro elemental resistance shred, allowing my Neuvillette to do crazy damage. And yes, she can also work with Kazuha on the team in the same time. Therefore, for a support Xilonen, she just needs to do her skill and then 2 normal attacks, and then you can swap her out. As for her burst, it is completely optional because it just does some geo damage and heals. So I guess you can do her ult after 2 normal attacks if you want, or you want to see her animations. Okay, what if you don't change 2 of her source samples? Well, that's where DPS Xilonen comes in. Now, her passive talent won't give her Nightsoul points, but instead will give 30% more damage to her normals. So the rotation will now be to use her skill for the Geo Elemental Resistance Shred, and then you just spam your normals. Her ult can also be used during this time. It will now do more damage, but it will no longer heal you. Here's an example clip of a C0 Xilonen as a DPS. I think the damage is alright, but at C0, I'd rather just build her as a support. Okay, that's it for her kit. So how do we build her? For a support, I definitely go with the 4-piece Cinder City set, pretty much giving my team a 40% elemental damage increase. I guess for very niche situations, I've seen people run 4-piece Instructor, but if you want to be safe, just use 4-piece Cinder City. You want to get defense % main stats for all 3 pieces, because Xilonen scales off of defense for her attacks, but also because her signature weapon gives more elemental damage buffs the more defense she has. Notice how the weapon passive gives her even more defense by doing 2 normals? This weapon is pretty much designed for her. I definitely try to get her weapon. If you don't have that, then I guess go for Freedom Sworn, Vavonia Sword, or the craftable Flute of Espizal. For a DPS build, since Xilonen consumes Nightsoul points, she definitely wants the 4-piece Obsidian Codex. But if your luck is really bad like me, I guess I would go 4-piece Marichois Hunter, 4-piece Shimenawa, or 4-piece Husk. For main stats, just go defense % sands, geo damage goblet, and crit circlet, maintaining a 1-to-2 crit ratio. Her signature is still really good for a DPS build, so I'd still stick with that. But if you lost your weapon banner, Chiori's weapon is also pretty decent on her. As for Constellations, C1 is pretty good for its interrupt resistance, but it is not perfect. You can still get knocked back. You also get longer Nightsoul duration, which is also pretty nice. C2 is extremely good. You get additional buffs based on the element, like extra crit damage for my cryo characters. It's worth noting though, the 45% attack and HP increase for Pyro and Hydro characters is from your base stats. So Neuvillette will not suddenly get like 70k HP for fun. But it is still pretty significant. Check out this comparison with a C0R1 Xilonen versus a C2R1 Xilonen for the Neuvillette team comp. C4 is also really strong in my opinion. Your main DPS can now do even more damage that scales off of Xilonen's defense stat. So if you want the max support capability, you want to pull her C4 and stack as much defense as you can for her. Here's a comparison of a C2 R5 Xilonen and a C4 R5 for the Neuvillette team comp. C6 is basically a DPS Constellation for her. It makes her attacks do more damage and her Nightsoul duration lasts even longer, so she can be on field for longer, I suppose. Here's what a C6 DPS Xilonen looks like. Take a look at this clip. Alright, that's it for my Xilonen video. She's almost a universal support. Too bad she cannot really buff Anemo, Dendro, or physical DPS. But the character she can buff becomes really strong. Like, I don't think anyone asks for a Neuvillette buff, but sometimes it really be like that though. Overall, I think a lot of people will be pretty satisfied with this character. Definitely worth pulling, and if I missed anything, I will leave it in a pinned comment. Alright, that's it. See ya.